Have you ever had a boss who is more obsessed with how you did your work than the actual results you were getting? Yeah, that's not leading, that's hovering. Today, we're going to break down how you can build a team that actually runs on accountability, not on you constantly babysitting them. This whole idea started with a story from a firefighter at Boise Fire. He had this captain, and this captain, he meant well, but he drove his entire crew absolutely nuts. He'd question everything from how they held a fire hose to the way they mopped the floors. I mean, the job always got done, right? But the focus was never on the outcome. It was always on his very specific method. And for the crew, this was just maddening. They felt totally controlled, not led. And here's the kicker. The captain genuinely thought he was a fantastic leader, that he was all about quality. But in reality, he was just crushing their initiative and creating a ton of resentment. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with that story, that tale of two leaders. Then we'll diagnose what's really going on with this fear-based strategy. After that, we'll talk about building a solid foundation, put together a 4-step accountability engine, and finally, make that crucial jump from just being a manager to being a real leader. You see, that whole frustrating experience with his captain wasn't just some bad memory for the author. It actually became a defining moment. Really, it was the perfect blueprint for what not to do as a leader. He basically made a promise to himself that if he ever got the chance to lead a team, he would do the exact opposite. So that negative experience, it became the positive core of his entire leadership philosophy when he went on to build his own company. He turned all that frustration into one powerful lesson. You empower people, you don't control them.
Okay, so what is really going on with micromanagement? What's at the heart of it? I mean, most micromanagers, they just think they have really high standards. But the author says no. The root cause is actually something way deeper.
And here it is. This is the key insight. Micromanagement isn't about quality. It's about fear. It's the leader's fear of mistakes, fear that things won't be perfect, fear of losing control, and all that fear comes out as this obsessive need to dictate every single step. And when you put them side by side, the difference is just night and day, isn't it? Micromanagement focuses on control, and it just destroys a team's spirit and stunts their growth. Accountability, on the other hand, focuses on outcomes, and it builds a team up. They really are polar opposites. So how do we get out of this fear trap? How do we start building for accountability? Well, the solution begins way before you even kick off a project. It all starts with the people you bring on board. This is such a fundamental truth of leadership. You can't just force someone to be motivated. It has to come from within. So your job isn't to be some kind of motivational speaker. It's to hire people who are already motivated and then just give them a crystal clear destination. And think about it. Your hiring choices directly impact your job. If you hire the wrong people, guess what? You're going to spend all your time managing process, micromanaging. But if you hire the right people, you get to do the fun part, the important part, leading the direction. So what is your role, really? It's to define the what and the why. You give your team the destination, you tell them why the journey is so important, and then you have to trust them to figure out the how. If you dictate the route, you're either going to drive away your best talent or just create a team that can't function without you. All right, so let's get super practical. You've got the right people in place. Now what? How do you build a real system for accountability? The author calls it the accountability engine. It's like a flywheel that gets stronger and faster every time it turns. And there are 4 steps that build on each other. First, you collaborate. Then you define success. Then you set up a regular feedback cadence. And finally, you all commit to using a shared system. So let's dive into each one of those. So, step 1 is all about collaboration. Even if you think you have the perfect plan, you have to involve your team in figuring out the why. Because when people help create the plan, the ownership just naturally transfers. The project stops being your project and it becomes our project. And when that happens, accountability is pretty much automatic. Next up, and this is huge, you have to clearly define what success actually looks like. Without clear benchmarks, accountability is just a fancy word for pressure. So what is it? Is it a sales number? Is it a hard deadline? A specific outcome? When you're clear about the target, your team can aim for it and even correct their own course, which means you don't have to. Step 3 is all about cadence. You need regular check-ins, probably weekly, but the mindset here is absolutely key. This is not surveillance. This is not a mini performance review. It's a feedback loop. It's a time for the team to share progress and for you to ask, how can I help? You're a navigator, not an inspector. And the last step, this one's non-negotiable, you have to have a shared system. Look, if your team is trying to manage projects with personal notebooks, a bunch of sticky notes, and a million email threads, you don't have an accountability system. You have chaos. Using a platform like Asana or Slack or Monday.com, that gives everyone the visibility to know who owns what and where things stand in real time. So, keeping this whole framework in mind, let's go back to where we started, with that fire captain, because now we can see his behavior through a totally new lens. And with this new perspective, the author had this big realization. His captain wasn't a bad guy. He was just afraid. He was afraid things would go wrong, and his strategy for dealing with that fear was control. It's a really powerful shift from blaming him to actually diagnosing the problem.
And the real irony? This whole fear-based approach created the exact problems the captain was trying to avoid. His team totally checked out. Their creativity died. Nobody took any initiative anymore, and they ended up performing at the bare minimum instead of reaching their real potential.
So what does real accountability look like? Well, it's putting the right people in the room and then actually trusting them to deliver. It's checking in to help, not to hover. And it's measuring the results, not obsessing over the process. That right there is the difference between just managing tasks and truly leading people.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to ask ourselves. Are you building a team that completely depends on you for everything? Or are you building a team that can lead itself? Think about it. Are you creating followers or are you creating future leaders? Because, that answer, it changes everything.